Trump's ascendancy to the top of the RNC has brought some changes with it that are making a lot of conservatives nervous. Most notably, that has happened recently, the change where the national abortion ban was taken out of the RNC platform, and the announcement that Amber Rose, a rather controversial figure in celebrity land, would actually be speaking at the RNC. This has caused people to begin issuing eulogies for the future of conservatism and begin saying that the RNC is being feckless by conserving nothing, and that conservatives, in the words of Todd Starnes, have nowhere at all to go. But are these critiques fair? What are their significance, and are there other angles that are being missed in the popular dismay around these recent events? Well, I believe they are. There are many things being missed. I'm going to explore some of those angles today and show people why, in general, I think the future of conservatism in America is bright if we reclaim what it means and if we understand the limits of our own ideas. But before we get into all that, my friends, hello, thank you so much for being here. I am Christian Watson. I am your host. If you enjoy political and social commentary with a philosophical bent, I would implore you, please subscribe, like, share, comment. If you want to go to the extra mile, there's of course my donation information in the bottom and in the comment section down below, but that's not obligatory. Even if you disagree with me, I encourage you to subscribe, because we're not going to save America and we're not going to have a more epistemically brighter future in terms of our ability to understand knowledge and debate issues unless we engage the ideas and engage the people who we may not agree with. So I would encourage all of you to do that engagement in the form of helping me get up to, we're going for 11,000 subscribers now. So let's go towards that, and if all of you could help me get up there. I am just a 24-year-old man trying to make sense of the world, and so all of your help is appreciated. Now, beyond the sales point and onto the video. So, I will read some of the tweets that are complaining about what is happening recently, because every idea and every position needs an advocate, because if it doesn't have an advocate, you can easily strawman and misrepresent the position at large. So one commenter on X, Benjamin Rothov, says, in the last 2 days, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio both took liberal positions on abortion. The weakest GOP platform in decades was released, and the founder of Slutwalk, Amber Rose, was announced as an RNC speaker. Is this really what conservatism is? Another tweet from Jenna Ellis, a woman who was implicated in the sham trial down in Atlanta where President Trump, headed by Fani Willis. She says, the RNC is trading Lila Rose for Amber Rose, pro-life for pro-abortion, live action for Slutwalk. And that's a reflection of Trump world over God's truth. Christians and conservatives should not support this. 1,000 likes, 596 comments. Gene Church, another commenter, says, the RNC trades Lila Rose for Amber Rose. These comments are very... Okay, first of all, if you're going to make a critique, you should aspire for originality in your critique. It may be true that they're doing this, although I have some qualms with these arguments. But you should inspire for originality, because originality actually forces you to develop the rigor of your arguments, which then in turn forces you to interpret the soundness of your arguments, which then in turn encourages you to be able to make sure you're making true statements. It strengthens your relationship with truth. So that's just one thing I want to note here. The RNC trades Lila Rose for Amber Rose, from right to life to pro-abortion Slutwalk. Welcome to the RNC, the lesser of two evils. Sarah Posey, another commenter, says, Nikki Haley is a former state congresswoman, governor, UN ambassador, and was the second leading contender for the Republican nomination. Amber Rose is a former stripper, ex of Kanye's, and a founder of the LA Slutwalk. Another commenter says, a porn star speaking at the RNC is disgraceful. What the hell is conservatism conserving if they put these people front and center? So, there are so many things to talk about here, but let me first say this. The chief fallacy in all of these different responses is that these commenters presume that political parties are the proper vehicles for the transmission of political and moral values. Now, what do I mean? Every one of these commenters is saying the RNC is not conserving conservatism, which then suggests that the RNC, as an institution, at one point in time, until recently, had an interest in conserving conservatism. Now, if you genuinely believe that the apparatchiks of the political class and the structure of political parties are attuned to ideology, as opposed to short-term expediency and political gain, I would submit to you that you have a rather naive and romanticistic view of the party system, one that is not justified by reason, history, or observation. The political party system is not a vehicle for values. It's a vehicle for the transmission and the maintenance of power. And anyone who knows anything about the categorical difference between power and values knows damn well, excuse my language, that power and values are of two different categories. And there is this debate over how in the world can we get power to motivate and influence our ability to preserve our values, which is a very worthy debate, but they're still of two different natures. Power is a neutral tool. Values are statements of moral conviction that go in towards one direction, so they are, by definition, not neutral. So the norms of power are going to be focused on maintaining power, maintaining control, whereas the values will be focused on higher things. So there is no universe in which ideology is primary in a political party. I'm not saying this is a good thing. In fact, I wish that the Republican Party and other parties would be more forefront in their attempts to maintain moral conviction, but I understand the very nature of the party system is that it flaunts moral conviction in the name of electoral strategy and also in the name of preserving power. You'll always hear people appealing to, we need to get Congress, we need to win the presidency, all this kind of stuff, and then when we do all these things, we will be able to afford our agenda. Well, what inevitably happens is that when all those things do happen, when there is a complete and utter homogenous legislature and executive branch, most of the time, things that they say we're going to get done don't get done. That is a feature of the system, because the system is guided by the norms of power, and the norms of power ensure certain things are eternal, and certain things do not change. Why do you think there is fiscal responsibility in Washington? Why do you think there is always this talk of giving money to foreign countries that have nothing to do with America? Why do you think there's always this talk of reform as opposed to abolition of the institutions that have been rotted out in America? It's because the norms of power have cemented these things into our political culture by way of language and have convinced people solely by habit, not by force of argument, not by reason. Oh no, those things don't actually exist in politics. Solely by habit that certain things are necessary, when in all reality, they are just convenient. So, given that political parties are not vessels for morality, they're not vessels for political values, given that we live in an imperfect world in this case, we have to accept the lot we are given and work with it and hopefully eventually go beyond it. But in this case, work with it if we're going to be realistic. So within the context of living in an imperfect world, conservatism is still not a guiding value to the party. But the grassroots that supports the Republican Party or any party, those are the people who actually reflect the values of the party, not the party apparatchiks. I don't care who gets into charge in the top of the party. They will never fundamentally reflect the values of the grassroots, whether it's the DNC, which cheated Bernie Sanders out of a spot of the nomination, which the grassroots wanted them to have, or whether it's the RNC, they ultimately do not respect the values of the grassroots unless there's a Trumpian-like revolution that forces them to. And then they will begrudgingly do so, but only in half measures. So now, if we admit this, we have to also understand something else. If the party apparatchiks will not respect the values of the grassroots by nature, then it's up to the grassroots to be a transmission vehicle for conservatism. This leads me to my second point about Miss Amber Rose. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, who are not baptized in the ways of pop culture, Amber Rose is a socialite, a very prominent socialite. She has been the girlfriend to many celebrities, and she has done some social activism around, as you know, sexual promiscuity and things of that sort. And surrounding Amber Rose is the broader culture of celebrity that I think produces its own set of negative anti-norms, anti-values that confer validity to people who have status but not substance, i.e. believing celebrities have political wisdom when in all reality they just have a platform and they have a convenient place in your mind due to some unrelated thing they'd actually acted in. I think the culture of celebrity is toxic in many different cases. But I also think if one can reach into the toxicity and pluck out a soul that can, and then put them in proximity to the right values, we should do that. So many different people are being pharisaical, if I must say so. They are acting as if they are righteous and holier than thou. And they are saying because Amber Rose is promiscuous, because Amber Rose is this or that, because Amber Rose is not the picture-perfect idea of what a chaste conservative should be, she should be excluded from the RNC in terms of her being able to speak. But it's those very people who are not conservatives, but whose eyes are being awakened by reality, by the realities around them, and who are being drawn towards conservatism, that conservatism, by virtue of necessity, by virtue of needing to survive, needs to cling on to and needs to get. Purity tests. Here's the thing about purity tests that I don't like whatsoever. Purity tests spoil the process of edification. Let me say it again. Purity tests spoil the process of edification. Now, what am I saying? When someone is in a place of vice, for example, when they're in a place of destitution, for example, moral destitution or whatever, financial destitution, in order for them to escape those places, they need to be edified. They need to be given a new set of principles, ideas, or values. And they need to then be demonstrated by someone, a good paragon, that those values are practical to them and they will benefit their life and they are true and they are good. And they need to go into the process of working those values into their life by habit and therefore becoming better in what they know. If you know better, you do better. That's the old saying. It's edification. But the moment you look at someone that comes from a place of vice or destitution, and you tell them, you're not at perfection yet, therefore we're going to exclude you. You just spoiled the process of edification. You just spoiled the intellectual conversion. You've just ruined the ability of that person to get closer to what is true and good by your own self-righteousness. And therefore, you are condemning your movement, your ideology, whatever you want to call it, conservatism, Americanism, you're condemning it to an eternal and perpetual state of defeat. You're condemning it to death. But so many people are too stuck in the abstract world, are too stuck in their own self-righteousness, that they cannot overlook or understand the imperfections of somebody else, but then understand the benefit that person can bring if they are brought to the light. So personally, I'm happy Amber Rose is speaking. She should be the poster child, in my opinion, for a subset of society that is out there, that is dealing with prostitution, that is dealing with drug use, that is dealing with promiscuity, that is dealing with all those things. And she should be the one coming into those spaces and being able to convey to those people the virtues of conservatism, the virtues of loving your country. I want that to happen because otherwise, how will we reach those people? And more importantly, how will the process of edification be universalized? If edification is just stuck with people that already agree with you, it's not edification. It's called preaching to the choir. It's called being in an echo chamber. And that is the danger that so many purists and their agenda pose for the future of the pro-America movement. This goes to a deeper conversation about what it means to be a conservative. If you believe being a conservative is about having higher values and that are discoverable through reason, that reflect a kind of ethos that is endemic to America, that is fundamentally unique to America, you're going to act very differently towards the notion of an Amber Rose speaking than if you believe conservatism is solely about tradition and a certain religion and habits and customs and principles don't matter. If your conservatism is one of habit and custom, Amber Rose, me, anyone who has ever been imperfect, even you, in all honesty, would be excluded from the conversation. But if you believe in a kind of universal conservatism that is contained in the American context, that is about morality and values, then not only can Amber Rose be included, everyone can be included so long as you put them through the process of edification. So if you were asking me, does Amber Rose reflect conservative virtue, her personal actions? Perhaps not, but that's not that actual question before us as we consider who should be brought into the movement more generally. The actual question is, does a big tent approach which brings new audiences into conservatism, merit consideration. If you want your movement to survive, then it absolutely must, and therefore Roe should be included in the conversation. That's just the plain truth about it. On the issue of abortion, a lot of people confuse process for principle. See, this is the hobgoblin of modern minds. They will say, because Trump, who edited the platform, by the way, he actually went in there and edited it, said, I'm not going to impose an arbitrary rule on all states that actually, by the way, by virtue of the 10th Amendment, already regulate that very issue themselves. I'll get that in a second. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to impose one on all states. I'm going to let this be an issue handled by the voters. That's a matter of process. You can still believe that on an institutional level, federalism is the best way to go about doing these things without conceding the ground that abortion is a moral evil, because it most certainly is a moral evil, and that hasn't changed. The RNC platform did not change that fact. That fact remains not only consistent, it remains a lively notion in the minds of so many conservatives in this country. So why are people upset? Because people are confusing process for principle. When you confuse process or principle, you will not understand either of them. You will not be able to use either of them as it relates to your ability to interact fruitfully with the social and political situations in our country. Now, on the issue of federalism, if abortion is murder, which I certainly believe it is, who deals with murder already? The states do. The feds handle murder if it happens to like a foreign official or a president or a senator, but most generally it's a matter for states to handle. Just because there's not a national ban on murder, a federal ban on murder, does not mean we are somehow endorsing murder. No, we're saying that this is a matter that people in their communities have to regulate and deal with, and every state deals with it. Now, abortion, unfortunately, is a little bit more morally complicated than that, because there's a lot of people that use rhetoric to justify murder and all kind of other pseudoscientific methodologies to try to convince people that the murder of the fetus is somehow virtuous. So it has to be dealt with in a more complicated and a more involved way. Arbitrary rule will not hasten virtue. Arbitrary rule will not convince minds. Arbitrary rule, which goes against the personal, I think, ethos of our republic and the structure of our republic, will also not change anyone's minds. It will simply worsen the divisions and worsen the problems that we have right now. So on these two issues, the RNC going haywire on abortion or whatever, and Amber Rose, a slut walk person, a porn star or whatever. She's not a porn star, by the way. That's not even true. But a person that is of ill repute speaking at the RNC. I have to just shake my head and say, these notions of habit that confuse process with principle, that confuse habit for virtue, are nothing more than a relic from the old world. They're un-American, and they don't actually understand the importance of the process of edification that is going to be so important in bringing people towards the virtue of conservative values. So, in my opinion, I think we have to contextualize these things. Let's not freak out. Let's not go crazy. Let's not have meltdowns. Let's not do eulogies. Let's actually understand our current moment. Let's actually understand the importance of sort of minuscule steps to getting towards a goal. Let's actually understand the distinction between what we believe in and the process that we undertake to get to what we believe in. If we keep these things in context, I believe we're going to be on a pathway to a great American revival. But only if we, as the pro-America movement, whether you're conservative or whatever you are, keep these things in context. I have no use for the RNC. I have no use for the political party system in general. I think it is a deficiency from what the founders wanted for our country. It is a system that is inherently prone to corruption. It is a system that is inherently prone to the norms of power as opposed to the norms of morality. It is a system that is in so many ways just absolutely horrific. But having said that, in this imperfect world, it's much better to see the cup half full, justify that on the basis of reason, and then pursue forth on that ground so we can fill the whole cup up and have a bountiful American revival, which I know we can do as Americans if we get our intellectual shoddiness straightened out. That is my message. My friends, if you like this video, like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you can to get this message out there. If you want to donate to me, you can do that as well. It's all in the information down below. Join my Locals community, please. christianwatson.locals.com. Join my Discord community. It's also in the comment section down below. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please, 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 stay pensive. Bye, guys.